One topic, two opinions.
Forcing folks to place such a high value on foreskin is radical.
What's radical is the view that another person can decide for you. That's forcing things.
The Moodring changes color. To red when our guests agree. Blue when they don't.
My name's Mikael Yakut. I'm a student of Islamic studies. On the topic of circumcision, I'm against it being outlawed despite the risks involved.
I'm Ephraim Seidenberg. I come from Switzerland. Removing the foreskin should only be allowed when a grown-up makes that decision for themselves. And certainly not when forcing that decision on another person, especially a child.
Will they come closer? Or will the mood get chillier? Circumcision is part of my religious identity.
No.
No.
I'm not a religious person myself. I come from a Jewish family, I have Jewish forefathers, but I'm not religious. And even for people who are religious, it's not part of their religious identity per se. I know people like this. And quite the contrary, whether they are religious or not, they also see protecting their children from violence as important. Of course, I wish that my parents had thought the same way.
Personally, I'm a Muslim and I don't view it as necessary. There are many people who see it as their duty, but I'm rather of the belief that your own body is more important than a sunnah, as we call it in Islam, a practice of the Prophet Muhammad. There are practices it would be better to follow, but they aren't mandatory.
With my parents, religion was a reason, but there was also this masculine image, that this child, so me, should become a man whose genitals looked such and such a way. And that's something that pains me.
What kind of experiences have you had with your circumcision?
There's a whole range of things, starting with, I grew up that way. It was done 8 days after my birth.
8 days?
Yes, and without any anesthetic.
Without anesthetic?
Yes.
Yeah, that's brutal.
It's done that way all the time, even with older kids. I know lots of stories like that. Of course, I don't have any conscious memories. I don't have a mental image of it, because you don't at that age. But just imagining it being done to me gives me goosebumps. Taking a child, a little child who's just come into this world, holding it tight and then taking a knife and cutting something off the most intimate part of their body. I find that simply cruel, brutal. That's how it was with me too. When getting to know my body, so I had various problems. Not just during sex or with my sexuality, but of course with that too. And I didn't know that these things had to do with that. The pain, sometimes bleeding too. I had problems with my skin, and also while peeing.
I was circumcised at the age of 7 or 8. It also didn't go so well, though I don't have any problems now because of it. I don't know if it was done by a specialist. It was performed by someone at home, not in a hospital. He also made a mistake. At the end I fell asleep and I lost a lot of blood. Then I passed out and had to be operated on again. I must say, I still have a lot of visible scars. And now I have...
I'm so sorry for you.
Yeah, I understand the reasons for performing a circumcision, but I can also understand the reasons for not doing it.
Circumcision is an assault on the body.
Yes.
No.
Someone cutting something off your genitals with a knife is not just bodily harm, it's violence. What else could it be?
If circumcision is bodily harm, then you'd also have to put something like having your tonsils out into that category, or you'd have to view having your wisdom teeth out as bodily harm. The intention is to achieve something positive. That's always what's behind it, even if it doesn't produce positive results.
It's always a bodily injury, even what you just said about having your tonsils out. But that's not so controversial. Those who do it don't deny that it's a bodily injury. In purely legal terms, it is. Medical, surgical procedures are also deemed to be bodily harm, but with the proviso that permission has been given, depending on what's being done. I'm not against circumcision, but I'm against forced surgical procedures on the genitals. Above all, I'm for self-determination for everyone and for protecting children from having such genital surgery forced on them.
Banning circumcision leads to it being done in secret.
Probably yes. No. I think the risk is quite high that people would start conducting it on children themselves or use men who work in similar fields. Even if it's done by a specialist, they wouldn't have the right materials or would have to do it in secret. In any case, the risk would be greater and even more accidents would occur, and that'd be pretty fatal.
It's already so uncontrolled and done in a way I'd call secret. It's legally permitted. The person doesn't even need to be medically trained to perform it up to the age of 6 months. I mean, from the stories we hear, it's often done on holiday. There's neither norms nor oversight. No one takes a closer look and monitors it.
I think the question of values is paramount here. You view the worth of a body part as being much higher than I do, for example. If I saw an advantage to it, I wouldn't care about having some part of me cut off or removed. If it's advantageous, I think it's a good thing to do. That's the difference. But I think forcing folks to place such a high value on the foreskin is a bit radical.
But I'm not forcing anything on anyone. A grown-up can have something removed if they want to. What I think is radical is the view that another person can decide that. That's forcing things. Personally speaking, I think it's awful. I'll never know what it would feel like otherwise. I only have an idea because I've really looked into this. Instead, I've had nothing but problems, pain and things that just don't work the way they would have naturally. I see a scar. For me, it's a visible mutilation and I see it every day.
Für mich ist das eine Verstümmelung, was ich da sehe, und ich sehe das jeden Tag. Und
I totally get that.
And that was forced on me.
It's politicians' responsibility to ban circumcision.
No.
nein.
And yes.
Ja.
No.
Ich finde nicht, dass
I don't think something like that should generally be forbidden. People should be allowed to have it done on themselves if they're in a state to give their informed consent. So if a person is an adult and of sound mind, they can choose to have it done on them. Yes, it should be forbidden to perform it forcibly on other people, children in particular. Every person should be able to decide for themselves and that must be protected.
insbesondere Kindern durchzuführen. Jeder Mensch soll selbst darüber bestimmen können und das muss geschützt werden.
Well, as I said before, I'm more for educating people about it. And as far as older people are concerned, I think we agree that it shouldn't be banned. Everyone has the right to choose what they do with their own bodies and what not.
Exactly the same should apply to children too, unless it's an absolute medical necessity. Doing that to someone who can't yet judge or decide for themselves is simply an act of violence.
Das ist einfach nur Gewalt.
Okay, I accept that.
So what's the conclusion? Did our guests grow any closer?
The information he conveyed to me, along with his emotions, which came across quite strongly, caused me to reflect.
I'm stirred up and pensive. At the same time, I'm glad we talked about this.
I never expected to meet someone like him. I've never met a person who'd experienced such harmful effects and felt so awful as a result. Yeah, it was intense.
I think we understood one another well and empathized with one another. That was nice.
It also makes you think about whether later you do it to your own kids or not.
Overall, I always had the feeling that we could develop a mutual sense of understanding, because I noticed that he really took what I said seriously, right from the start.
Von Anfang an auch gemerkt habe, dass das ernst nimmt, was ich sage.